Okay, so this is where we stopped actually now, right? This is where we stopped. And then I was just telling you that the Haar transform is actually part of a family of transforms known as wavelet transform. The primary reason is basically this. So this is a waveform. Okay, this is what they call as the mother wavelet. And then what you basically do is basically you scale and translate the mother wavelet. Okay, so if you are not understanding what I'm saying, it becomes very clear now. Okay, so we will start with the 1D wavelets and then we will build on the 2D part. It's quite straightforward from expanding from 1D to 2D for all transforms rather. Okay, so a wavelet is actually a waveform. Okay, so as the name suggests, it's a waveform, but it's why it is wavelet. Okay, so there is a certain duration, there's a limited duration. Okay, when we say limited duration basically restricts time. That means there's a frequency also restricted, right? Because any restriction in time obviously has a bound in frequency also. So it's a wavelet is nothing but a waveform for a limited duration. That means some variable bandwidth, and it should have an average value of 0. Okay, so if you notice all the transforms, I think most of the time the average value is 0. So in that case you can argue with me that the DC value, the first thing, is really not a wavelet. Okay, so that's correct, that's really correct. Some people call it as father wavelet. Okay, so it's all funny terms. So mother wavelet because you are generating other functions from mother. Okay, so that's why it's called mother wavelet. So there is a father wavelet which is essentially the DC component which has an average value, and then we call wavelets as simply mother wavelets. Okay, let me go back actually, just show you. So what I'm saying is this is the DC, this has an average value, right? If I take the average, this is a fixed constant value. So it is not a wavelet. Okay, so this is what they call as father wavelet, and then this is called the mother wavelet. Okay, this if we take average value, it is 0, right? And all other things, all these things are generated from this particular waveform, and you can see it has a finite duration in time. Okay, it's not really extending. Okay, so the assumption for Fourier transform, for example, or cosine transform, for example, ideally we discretize it, but ideally it is periodic in nature. That is just continuous. It is going from minus infinity to plus infinity, and that problem we already noticed, right? The problem of assuming that it is actually continuous and periodic, that results in an artifact in the image, the horizontal and vertical lines in the image we already discussed, right? But wavelets are something which is actually finite in duration. They are not extending infinitely over time. Okay, and that another condition is like its average value of is 0. So but to cover the entire spectrum, something like DC value, then obviously if average is 0, it will not have a DC value or average value, right? So to cover that, you have a father wavelet also in place. Okay, so this is what it exactly means. So sine wave becomes a wavelet if it is restricted in time. Okay, so if it is really finite duration in time, if it's not really existing outside, it can be considered as a wavelet. But generally we don't think sine wave as that, because it is obviously easy to sort of predict that its outside will also be a sine wave, right? So wavelet looks like this, something like this. So it's a crispy. So this is something known as Dobeshi's 10 series. So some compact, nice representation of a damped sinusoid, I would say. So it will have a spectrum. If I take Fourier transform of this, it will have a frequency component, right? And obviously it will be having a restricted bandwidth also, because it's not really infinitely long in time, and it is actually not shrink. It's not really delta, right? It is occupying some duration also. So it has a finite bandwidth also associated with it. Okay, so this is exactly the visualization. If you really want to think of a wavelet, I think this is something which is very, very useful. Have it in mind. Okay, so finite duration in time, and that means a finite bandwidth also. Okay, and the average value has to be 0. So that's what mother wavelet is all about. So mathematically, okay, so this is important actually. So I try to restrict the equations to minimal in all my lectures, but sometimes it's inherent that you have to start with equations, because it's important to understand the equations, and most of the time I take the equations, explain it, and then move away from that. If derivations are some of you are interested in that, feel free to email me. Definitely we can work it together. But for the bigger audience, I would like to restrict the usage of equations and try to understand what is the crux behind it, and then move on. Okay, so this is the expression for a wavelet transform. Okay, so continuous wavelet actually is defined by something like this. Okay, so there is a factor. So psi t is a function. Okay, it's a function of basically time. Okay, and two parameters are there for that function, this wavelet function, and one is S. S is known as scaling, and obviously you can see over here it is coming as the denominator of time. So time by something, so it is time scaling. So it's very, very quite straightforward for you to understand that. So S is a scaling factor and tau is a translation or shifting factor. Okay, so we are beautifully defining something. Okay, so I think some of you immediately can recollect what I am really trying to say. So you define a function which is psi of t. Okay, so that is, so this is a finite duration function. Okay, something which is psi of t. Okay, so this is your function, right? A function is nothing but something which varies over time. So t is the independent variable here, psi of t is the dependent variable. Okay, and but that is sort of expressed, or that is actually having two parameters associated with it for a wavelet to work, and they are tau, which is actually the translation operation or shift operation in terms of 1D signals, and a scaling operation in time of this. So what it happens? Let's guess what is exactly meaning of this. So when I do this operation, I can actually shrink the signal, right, or expand the signal. Okay, maybe it's not the right way to say. Okay, let me just put it. So I can expand the signal, or what I can do is I can shrink the signal. Okay, this is better. Now it should be very clear. So that is controlled by this guy. Okay, so S parameter will control both these aspects. Okay, and then this guy is basically what it actually shifts the signal to cover the entire signal or image to start with. And now you go back to your Haar transform. So Haar transform has a square shape, right? And then what you are doing, so this psi of t is nothing but a square function. Okay, it's nothing but a square function, as simple as that. And then what you are doing is basically, if you want to scale it down, something like this, right? What you need to do is basically this guy, S is coming into the picture. So you are scaling down, okay, by in a factor of 2 in the case of Haar transform. And then this tau factor, this tau guy was actually doing the shift. So basically you shift it, right? Now next one you have it here, right? So you shifted it. So that is basically what essentially nicely captured in this particular thing. So a wavelet is nicely defined by a compact function which is finite in time, and then it is basically having two arguments associated with it to make a wavelet transform, and they are actually the scaling function and the shifting or translation function. And of course this is to normalize the thing, okay, normalize the value so that the effect of that is not really, the effect of it is actually neutralized, right? So that's the thing. And now just to give a picture of how the evolution of wavelet has come. So the first wavelet is a Haar wavelet, and now you can actually go back and see it very clearly. It is a square function nicely represented. So in that case S is a factor of 2. So some people expressed it as 2 raised to j. Okay, S is equal to, okay, S is equal to 2 raised to j in the case of a Haar wavelet, and tau is basically the shifting in time. I mean, some people are confused. Let me just go back and show you exactly what I mean in the Haar wavelet case. So this is the function, this is the mother wavelet, okay, and this is the father wavelet, and then what you are deriving all other functions from the mother wavelet. So in this case, as I said, the mother wavelet is scaled by 2. That's how you got this, and then you're translating it using the tau parameter. Again this guy is scaled by 4 in this case, you get this, and then it is translated in all these cases. Again this guy is scaled by 8, then you end up in this, and then you're translating it here. So that's the end of it. So this is the beauty about Haar wavelets, and that is why it is also known as Haar wavelets other than Haar transform. Even though Haar wavelets came much prior to the official definition or mathematical formulation of wavelets, but they are treating Haar wavelet as sort of the first wavelet ever discovered. And then there was sort of a heavy period where mathematicians were working on the concept of wavelet, and then as you always know, sometimes there is a big gap between the mathematicians and the engineers, and if there is a big gap, most of the concepts will remain in theory, nothing will work out. But in 1970s, a person named Morlet, okay, he discovered that wavelets can be expressed in terms of filtering operations, something like convolution operations, and that really was a revolution. And then people like Mayer and Mallet, okay, these are sort of famous guys like your Jeff Hinton, right, of neural network, or all your Andrew Karpathy or the Andrew Youngs of deep learning or neural network. Similar to that, these people were Morlet, Haar, Mayer, Mallet, all people were actually the pioneers of wavelet transforms and applying that. And then of course people like Koiflets are famous. Dobeshi's, she's also has a lot of wavelets according to her name. So dB10, obviously you have dB1 which is Haar, then dB10, dB20, so many. It's increasing order frequency, that's all, okay. So different basis function, different mother wavelets you can actually define, and then of course you can use this formula to create, to use a wavelet, to form a wavelet transform out of it, okay. So I hope it's pretty clear. I hope I explained it clear without any confusion. So some of the examples of wavelets. So Haar you are already familiar with. Then Shannon or Sync is also a wavelet, right? This also you might have seen it. Those who are coming from signal processing, image processing might have seen this. This is what you are using it for reconstructing an analog signal from a digital signal, right? A sync function. Then Dobesh is for dB4, okay? So it looks like this. So you can see different, this all, obviously you can see the frequency increase from here to here. So 4 to 20 is nothing but increase in frequency. And then Gaussian, yeah, you can treat Gaussian as a wavelet. Why not? Spline or Gaussian, right? And then, this is something which is interesting, bi-orthogonal, okay? So I'll briefly mention what is the importance of this. So Mexican hat is another wavelet and Koiflet is another wavelet. So all these, okay? So all these actually have forward and inverse transforms using the same wavelet, okay. Bi-orthogonal, when it means forward transform will be using one set of waveform and reverse transform is using the other set of waveform, okay. So that is why it's called bi-orthogonal. Together they makes orthogonal, but individually the basis functions are not orthogonal to each other. So that is the meaning of it, okay. So we'll not discuss much about it, but this is a very beautiful area. Somebody is really interested in doing something in wavelets, even though it's saturated as well, because a lot of people have used our early 2000 to late 2000. A lot of people have done a lot of work using wavelets, and JPEG, for example, there is one standard which is purely based on wavelets, okay. Other than the DCT, JPEG 2000 is DCT, but later on some standards came which were using wavelets, for example, okay. So the essence of it, actually, we started off last week. We started off with sinusoid basis, cosine basis. This week earlier we started with square waveforms, then ramp or sawtooth waveforms, and then Haar wavelets. Now we are talking about any random shape, and if somebody has worked on ECG signal and all, they can actually correlate to the usage of something like this or even this, right? They have very much similar shape to that of ECG. So those who really wants to compress an ECG signal, they can use these sort of transforms, some of these. And a lot of studies have been done in that perspective, okay. And you might be thinking, where exactly is it used in image? Yeah, that's a good question. Images, wavelets are useful, but not really that useful compared to some of the 1D signal applications, okay. But it's important that you have to, this is sort of a very generalized concept actually. So wavelet, actually this form of thing is sort of a very generalized compact representation, mathematical representation of a waveform function, which can be used as a basis of a transform, okay, right? I hope everything is clear. Let's actually move on, okay. So this is what I was telling you. So it has a scaling function which we call as mother wavelet, right? It should cover from DC, and for that we have a special wavelet known as father wavelet that we discussed, right? So I think the name literally tells everything. So because all of us are reproduced from mother, right? So that's why mother wavelet gives birth to all other wavelets. Father wavelet is a single entity which covers the DC part of it, okay. So that's it. So now let me just briefly go through continuous. This is what we discussed, right? This is what we were actually discussing in the last slide. So basically what essentially it means is, this is the function, the wavelet function, and then you need to do transform, right? So that's important. So you basically need to actually vary you need to cover the full signal, right? So this particular transform has to cover the full signal. That's very important, right? And that's exactly what nicely represented in the continuous wavelet transform, okay. So this complex conjugate just means that I can have a complex wavelet also. Need not be real wavelets, it can be complex wavelet also. That's all the meaning of it. So, and as I said, this is the shifting and this is the scaling part of it. So essentially your wavelet is really going through the entire signal. So this is your 1D signal. you are basically sort of doing the convolution operation essentially. So t minus infinity to plus infinity is sort of convolution operation, and then you have the so basically to make it very simple, your the transform will have two parameters. Your u and v in the earlier cases is your translation and your scaling, right? The shifting and scaling they call. The shifting and scaling is what you essentially achieve over here. And when you change these two, essentially you are changing is basically mother wavelet. You are compressing the mother wavelet and translating the mother wavelet to cover the entire signal. So that's exactly what you are achieving. And then discretization is what you are shown over here. So you no more have this sort of continuous signal minus infinity to plus infinity. You have some numbers which are actually in this range, for example 0 to n minus 1. Okay, some signal which extends, so n sample signal. Okay, so that n sample signal is here, x of n. And then you obviously discretize your wavelet also, right? So wavelet is no more existing throughout time. It is existing only in some n values, and then this is as usual your scale shifting, and this is your scaling. This is what I was telling you. Okay, so a becomes 2, so 2 raised to j is what wavelet, Haar wavelet is all about. Okay, a became 2 here, but it's not really restricted to a, but for simplicity we put it as a equal to 2 because there's a lot of easiness in implementation when we do that. And I hope there is no confusion going from here to here. It's quite straightforward. Okay, now if you see this operation, okay, so this is nothing but a convolution operation, a convolution between your original signal and your wavelet function. Okay, and this wavelet function is obviously scaled, right? If you ignore this part, if I ignore it, okay, let me just erase the ink. Okay, so you just ignore this portion, it's not there. So then essentially this means a convolution operation, a convolution between a signal and a kernel. A kernel is nothing but a wavelet function in this case, that's all. And what we need to do is we need to repeat that for each of the scales of wavelet, and that is where this factor comes into the picture. Now by the inherent property, by the inherent commutative property of convolution, I can exchange the shifting operation between the signal and the kernel, and that's what essentially happening here. So I just replaced, I basically going to shift my signal, not the kernel, and that's what I can do actually. And then obviously I can scale the resultant also. Maybe I will not spend time on this expression, I will spend time in this particular thing. So you can implement, and this has been the revolution, because as I said, there has been lot of studies on wavelet transforms mathematically from 1909 to almost 1970s, but nothing went and got implemented until the time when the Mayers and the all the great engineers discovered that Stephen Mallet for example, discovered that this can be implemented as a convolution operation, and then it is as straightforward as implementing a filter, something like this. Okay, so this is a wavelet transform, it implements this guy. Okay, let's see how, let's actually see how it's important. So g of n and h of n are your father and mother wavelets. Okay, so h of n is sort of your low pass, the high pass filter. Okay, so this is your thing which is actually one wavelet function, and then that is repeated. So this is basically repeated throughout, I am not really changing, and that is actually represented here. Okay, okay, so what essentially happens is you have a signal, that signal is divided into a high pass and a low pass. Okay, and then what you are doing is this low pass is again split it into high pass and low pass. So essentially what happens, so basically a splitting in time, always remember that splitting in time is equivalent to doubling of frequency, right? So this is equivalent to your, and if you go back to the Haar wavelet and see, you are basically halving you are basically scaling down the wavelet function by 2, right? Instead of that, what we are doing here is scaling down the entire signal by 2. Because this is sort of commutative, the operation is sort of commutative. So instead of scaling down the wavelet function, what I can do is scaling down the outcome or the signal itself. That is what essentially doing over here. So in this case A is 2. Okay, so that's it. J is basically the factor. So if j equal to 1, you only have this much. If j equal to 2, you have this much time, and j equal to 3, you have this much level. So this guy this guy, and this guy. Okay. So basically what I'm saying, okay, maybe to avoid the confusion, if j is equal to 1, okay, so if you have j equal to 1, that means you will have j equal to 1 basically means you have only this output. Okay. And then if you have j equal to 2, you have this output and this output. If you have j equal to 3, you have this output and this output and this output. Okay, so that many. Okay, so it should be very clear to you why this particular thing works. And then of course this particular thing, the shifting is done by this particular operation. So this is convolution. Okay, so when I see a block of g of n, what essentially happening is I am convolving x of n with g of n and x of n with h of n. So after the convolution operation, I am actually scaling it down. Okay, so this part is done. Okay, so okay, let me explain it from scratch. Okay, so what exactly happens is g of n and h of n are defined by this particular thing. Okay, so this phi, or maybe this is easier to represent. Okay, so this particular thing is what you are having, g of n and h of n. H of n is either the father wavelet or the mother wavelet, as I was telling. So in this case, this guy is the mother wavelet and this is the father wavelet. Okay, so you do convolution operation, that satisfies this part. Okay, so once the convolution is done, you are scaling down, that satisfies this part. Again you are doing the convolution. Okay, so that again satisfies this part. Again you are doing downsampling, that satisfies this part. So that's it. So that's why I was telling you this particular operation is implemented as a filter as this. So this looks like a convolution and that is nothing but a filter operation. I hope it is very clear. So the signal is coming here, that signal is divided into a high pass and a low pass, and again that is divided into a high pass and low pass, high pass and low pass, and so on. And essentially what you are getting is something like a transform operation. I hope I am not confusing you a lot. It should be very clear here. Okay, so now let's move on and see for 2D. So this is 1D so far I talked. 2D is quite straightforward. So you have to apply on the rows, columns and in the diagonal direction. That's all, right? So you can easily see it over here. So you have the image coming here. So the rows of the image is going here and column, and then basically what you're doing is the high pass and the low pass and the rows. Okay, so the the low pass operation on the row, basically this is sort of the mother wavelet operation, and then the high pass over here you can say the other part of it. Okay, the scaling operation I'm saying. Okay, so that's what essentially doing over here, and then you are doing the what I'm saying, I'm sorry. So this is the convolution of, I'm messing it out. Let me just yeah. So this is basically the convolution operation in the wavelet transform equation, and this is the scaling operation, right? So I'm doing on the rows first. Okay, so two different transfer functions representing the high pass and the low pass. So this is a high pass and this is the low pass part. You are basically scaling in the row direction, right? And then after that you have to repeat the same process for the column also. So that's what you are doing. Okay, so this is on whatever you do on the image, you do on the rows at this stage, then you do on the column. Okay, and again the scaling in the column. So this will form the the next, this will go to the next level. Okay, so this part will go to the next level. This will be the detailed. So in wavelet, I think I forgot to mention that in wavelet the low pass part of the low changing region is known as approximate coefficients. Okay, that's a literal name they call, and the high frequency or the fast changing region is known as the detailed coefficients, and that is why this D this basically not D is actually something different. It's not that. So the approximate and the detailed coefficient. So A for example, CA for example is coefficients approximate, and CD for example is coefficient detail. So coefficient detail in horizontal, vertical and diagonal. And then you take this and do the same operation. So this is sort of iterative now. So this guy will go and come and sit here and goes again. So each time, so you can think of something like the image, it starts as a bigger one, then it just compress and it looks like small as you go along. Okay. So this is how you do. And if you're really confused, don't worry. What you're essentially doing is you first apply wavelet transform on rows, then on the result of that you apply it on columns, and then by doing that rows and columns in both directions, you also get the diagonal component also. Okay, so that's what essentially. So let's revert it back. So this is basically the diagonal component in the wavelet transform. This is basically high pass, the detailed in the column as well as detailed in the row. Okay, and this guy vertical is interesting. It is the low frequency in the column direction and high frequency in the row direction. And horizontal is basically low frequency in the row direction, high frequency in the column direction. So that's what. And the low frequency in all directions will come as the approximate coefficient. So that's interesting. So you take the image, you have extremely low frequency in rows and column direction. We do more operations on that. That goes for further operations. Okay. And then we have the detailed or the high frequency, the low frequency in the rows followed by high frequency in the columns as one of the coefficient, and high frequency in the rows and low frequency in the column as this, and high frequency in both as another. So all these are sort of some high frequency component or detailed coefficients, and this is purely low frequency or approximate coefficient. And I will try to explain you with an example. So our cameraman image, so this is the approximate coefficient. So if I take the wavelet transform on this, okay, following this sort of architecture, what I end up in getting is approximate coefficient looks like this. Okay, so approximate, basically I do, so if how do I arrive at this is basically, you can see actually a reduction in size by 2. Okay, so 2 in row and 2 in column. So it is, if it is 256 by 256, you end up in getting 128 by 128 here. So first you apply on the rows. Okay, so basically along the rows you apply. The result of that you again apply on the columns. Each time you downsample by 2, you get this. Okay, and similarly this guy CH. Okay, CH is this guy. Okay, so you can obviously see, I think some pattern you can actually see horizontal edges are more clear than the vertical edges, or it's rather not that easy to find out. Okay, so this is if I do basically this chain. Okay, let me just put. Okay, so this particular thing is actually shown over here. Okay, and this particular arrangement is actually shown over here. And then let me just go ahead. Okay, so this particular thing is actually shown over here, the vertical part. And then of course the last one. Okay, so the last one is this guy, and that is actually shown over here. So this is what the beauty about wavelet transform is about. Okay, and you can choose any basis. So I didn't mention what basis I was using. So the low D and the high D part, you can choose any basis, right? This can be any basis, and that is repeated. Okay, you always remember that. So here the scaling is beautifully done on the input signal. Okay, so that's the beauty about it, right? We nicely made use of the commutative property of the convolution and then converted that to the input signal. Okay, so this is extremely low frequency in both rows and columns. Here it's more on the in the column direction, it is more detailed. Here it's more in the row direction, it's more. You can see some changes between these two. Okay, so you see the vertical, actually this should have been exchanged again, I think the same concept of MATLAB. So the horizontal is very clear here, whereas the horizontal is not very clear over here, but the vertical, the horizontal is very clear over here and vertical is very clear over here. I think this should form CV and CH is interchanged again in these two cases. And this is more of diagonal, and you can, I think, except for these extremely high values, because they are noise here, you can see over here there's no noise over here which got picked up. Other than that, the diagonal part has become more clear. Okay, so that is the beauty about the wavelet transform. So I have control on the vertical, horizontal and the diagonal edges in the case of a wavelet transform. And then depending on whether you choose Haar wavelet as the basis or Debache's wavelet as the basis, the response or the wavelet transform will obviously change. Okay, now let's move on. Okay, I think all things are erased, and now this is an example. So here I have only shown you one level of wavelet. So this is only one level. If I continue to increase, this is how the concept looks like. So the original image, the first stage will look like the approximate horizontal, vertical. This is how we are arranging. This is for the visualization aspect. Okay, the visualization of the wavelet transform is something like this. So this is the approximate coefficient, horizontal, vertical, diagonal components. And then what you do is you do, if you go to level 2, what essentially these three are untouched. These three are untouched. You do further on this. Okay, so basically further on this, that's why AA, AH, AV, AD. Okay, so you have, again you further on this. So this is again split, and that's what you are seeing over here. So this image, if I go for 3 levels, you get basically this particular structure. Okay, I hope it's pretty clear, and it's sort of self-explanatory. And again, as I said, you can do the wavelet transform for the entire image as it is, and many a times we take a smaller window and apply wavelet transform also. And I hope it should be very clear, and there should not be any confusion here. And we discussed about one of the most beautiful applications of sort of transform domain. Okay, so that sort of concludes our transforms. Okay, different varieties of transforms. I can actually take 1 or 2 lectures on the wavelet transform alone, the max part of wavelet transform alone, but that's really not part of the image processing course. I just wanted to introduce to you there are concepts like this, because talking on Fourier transform is one aspect, talking on cosine transform is another aspect, then talking about other transforms like Hadamard, slantlet or slant, then Haar, and then generalized form of wavelet. I think you should get a comprehensive picture of the variety of options that you have. Okay, I hope everything is clear to you, and we will take up all these in detail when we do the hands-on, and that sort of concludes the transform part of it. And now I have a related concept. Okay, so something which is very related to the wavelet transform or the wavelet tree. So some people call this sort of architecture as a tree architecture, because it's like a tree, right? You have an image, you divide it into 4, and then again you divide this guy into 4, and that guy again got divided into 4. So it's sort of a tree structure, right? So that is why they call it as wavelet tree also. If somebody is studying wavelet and suddenly come up this terminology of trees, this is a literal meaning of that. Okay, so since this is something like you are dividing the frequencies into 2 buckets, again the low frequencies again divided into 2 buckets, and so on. So it is like a tree. Something similar also exists in image processing literature, not really wavelets, and that is known as pyramids, image pyramids. Okay, so that is again very beautiful concept. So we will explain that in the next lecture, and by that we will conclude this week also. This is not a very big week, very stretchy week. I purposefully reduced the speed at which we are going, but it's important that you understand all these concepts, refer the textbooks, dig deep if you are really keen in wavelets and all, and if you are really having any questions, feel free to come back and we can take up even during the hands-on session. Okay, so I will stop now and we will discuss on the image pyramids in the next class. Okay, thank you.